And I live on Halverson up here, and it did feel somewhat at times like a war zone, pretty loud. These aren't sparklers that are going. Um, and, I really appreciated Council Member Younger's kind of bottom line at our meeting this last week. And he said, you got three options, right? And you enforce, you ban, or you put it on the ballot. And I guess my bottom line is, I'm not a girl that likes to go either or. I don't want you to stop responding to domestic violence to go to a fireworks call, but I do want I want something to be done. We're a large city. We have city services. Our citizens, have a right to a certain amount of expectation of enforcement. And I'm wondering, I was also reminded that this is the mayor's purview, of course, but I do believe council can set priorities, and we can strongly suggest that instead of no response to a complaint, and my pets don't suffer, but there are tons of them that do. My main thing are Desert Storm and other combat veterans who are triggered, with explosions. Do they know it's the 4th of July and all that? Yeah. But it just, in my sense of integrity, it's like we got something on the books. This is not supposed to be okay. It's having a negative impact on our citizens, but we can't do anything about it. And so there must be some creative solution. Does an armed law enforcement officer, and boy, with the complaints that you were talking about this 4th of July, they were assaults, they were this, it might have started as fireworks. I know all too well what can explode at one of your scenes, and I'm not talking about fireworks. And yet, I just heard one go off. Oh, that's great. That's great.
You should report it on the website.
I should, yeah. So I'm frustrated with it, and yet I'm I'm newbie. I've never personally made a complaint. I've just kind of let my dog go into the bathtub when he was still alive and cower and shake for days, but I never made a formal complaint. But people are pissed that we're not doing anything about this. And you're telling me 3 out of the 4 fires, granted, car fires, so there's damage, there's property damage. There could be injury. We don't, maybe we should check with the ERs and not just, law enforcement and fire department. But when I get told, and we invited the mayor to be here, and I've got a meeting with him on Monday. But when I'm told that it's going to come at the risk of law enforcement not responding to other crimes, I'm livid. I am absolutely livid. No, I want that. And I want this too. Tell me how it can be done. I realize it's a budgetary issue. We're going into budget. Does an actual armed officer have to respond? Is there some kind of triage that could be done on the calls? What could be done so that we can do something for once instead of just talk about this every year, from what I understand. And I see Lieutenant Elton. Jennifer.
Thank you, Denise. Yeah. Yes, Lieutenant Elton.
Yeah, this is obviously an every year conversation, but I did want to let you know that this year, not unlike other years.
There's more. What date is it?
I heard him.
Yeah.
In advance of the 4th of July, our patrol captain, Davis, got in touch with CENTCOM to touch base, and they talked about fireworks calls exactly, whether or not they're going to be reported online or what was going to be dispatched. And what was agreed to be dispatched was anything that threatened life or property, which is a way for us to be able to, do, like you said, triage, send an officer to those calls where we couldn't send off, or it's not reasonable to send officers to, the fireworks are allowed at my neighbor's house. Where things were threatening life and property, we were taking those calls. And I believe that's the same thing that was happening with fire. So just so you know, there was a conversation between at least Bremerton Police Department and 911 as to exactly what it is that we would go to as far as fireworks go.
What do other jurisdictions do? I mean, are there ways in which it can be addressed?
So that's a great question. Bainbridge, as you know, banned them. And I talked to Chief Clark today about what that looked like. 20,000 people, 6 officers. They educated, they didn't cite anyone. No one received a ticket. And they had less fireworks. They had lots of fireworks. They had less fireworks. And 6 officers on Bainbridge for 20,000 people were not able to respond to and deal with all of that. And then there's the legal side of it where, and no one ever wants to hear this. It's, we live in the McDonald's, I drive up to the window and I better get my burger right now age. Law enforcement is just not fast food service, and you get it your way. I have to on view that, so the officer has to see someone light the firework. So by the time it goes off and goes bang and annoys you and everyone else and the other, like I think Chief McGaney said, we had 54 people making 83 complaints. The other question I would throw back at you before I forget this, council, is this has come up over the last 35 years that I've worked here, almost every year with every council before this council. Why did those councils not ban fireworks? Because I'll tell you from firsthand experience, if you say, hey, we're going to ban fireworks, there's going to be another group of people on the other side of this issue that are going to come and just literally blow you guys up, pun intended. And that's been the history of this. There's very passionate people. You're going to have the Little League people come in and go, Councilperson Fry, we can't get our uniforms if we can't have our fireworks stand. And so there's both sides of this thing. And that's where, you guys get the legislative decision on how do we go best. Bainbridge, I think they had their community agreed that we want to ban fireworks. And so they
put it on the ballot or something like that.
Right. And then the next question is in earlier, Councilperson Chamberlain, you were talking about enforcement. So my question to you is, when you say the word enforcement, what's your expectation?
Because, and do you want me to answer that right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I will go ahead and address this now, even though Mr. Dennehy has his hand up. But my biggest concern is the spaces where it's very obvious on public parks and in schools. So, and I am in agreement about a campaign, an educational campaign. Mm-hmm. And this will be a standing agenda item. I'm making that commitment now through Public Safety Committee that every month when we come back together, we're going to ask for a little bit of a discussion about it. Like next month, as this is part of our standing agenda item, we'll want to know what the CENTCOM data is, and if you could help us out with that. Or, and you're right. Why is, you're absolutely right about both sides of the coin. My biggest concern is the areas where it's very clear and very obvious.
This is kind of what I was thinking was going to be the discussion. So in the bigger discussion that we just had the last 2 years about law enforcement nationwide, one of the biggest pushes, and especially our state legislators, and I don't know if you agree with them or disagree with them, but our state legislators made it very clear that we don't want law enforcement doing minor things.
Right, and I get that.
It leads to negative impacts with citizens. Mm-hmm. Now, who are the people using the parks to light off fireworks in general? It's our lower income. And I'll let you decide whether it's minority or not minority, but there's a socioeconomic gap in two groups. So what I hear you saying, and I think we'll get blown up on this, absolutely, is well, enforce it on this group of people, but the people that live on Marine Drive on the water that have the big.
I'm
rocks
calling
and everything, don't.
BS. I am calling BS on that, okay? No, I am absolutely not singling out a socioeconomic group of folks,
And
okay?
I'm not saying you are, I'm saying that's what's gonna
no.
get thrown at you.
Because you know what? I went to my partner's apartment complex, and you know what? They were setting them off in the street. Whatever, have fun, kids. It's the 4th of July, and they don't live in a rich neighborhood. So no. I'd like data first. That socioeconomic status is a precursor to where you're setting off fireworks. So if you can bring that to me at the next meeting, I will abide by that, and I will own up that yes, that we need to look at it from an equity lens.
Well,
And so I'm concerned about the waterways and the litter and the spaces that are easy. You know, we have one day of year where, but this was, you know, a blanket statement that was made through the press with a collective of other agencies, not to enforce it for a huge period of time. And I am so appreciative that the culture is changing within our law enforcement to have less negative contact. And that's what I explained to a fellow council member when they wanted to talk about the Evergreen Park situation. I said, you know, the other side of the coin is that when the more negative interactions or enforcement interactions that police and citizens have, the more often citizens and police are injured. And so let's have less of those. And then another suggestion was maybe there's a better way to check on these situations.
Yes.
And I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. And so I want to collaboratively for the citizens that want to ban it, because I don't think it, like you said, I don't know if this council wants to ban it or not, but there's got to be a collaboration that we can do together so that we don't have to have, we will have the same discussion every year. There will be, but let's see if we can mitigate it to support our neighbors.
So this is, and I'll just bring us full circle to the enforcement question. Enforcement is going to be very hit and miss. You know, I'm explaining to you when I explained to you that we went to, you know, 9 assault calls. Well, that's not one officer 9 times. That's 3 or 4 officers 9 times.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, people are going to the jail. Officers are all the way over to, I mean, we don't have the resources
Absolutely.
to enforce. I mean, cell phones are illegal to drive with. How many did you see today? Just today, people driving by with a cell phone. There are numerous ordinances on the books, and we just don't enforce them because we just can't. A few years ago, people were putting up flyers. This hate group came over from Edmonds and put up a bunch of flyers, and the Kitsapper race and other people were furious that we weren't enforcing you can't put flyers on the telephone poles. You can arrest them for that. I'm like, yeah, and then I have to arrest mom advertising the yard sale too.
Right.
And we're not going to do that. We're not the flyer on the telephone pole police. So we triage everything based on public safety, and we layer in the fireworks discussion on that. Our current ordinance bans certain fireworks and stuff, but you can drive up to the Indian reservation and you can get all kinds of illegal fireworks. And you can bring them back, and we can go down to Goodwill parking lot and get a whole bunch of fireworks. And what's what, I don't know. Storing them here, very dangerous. We lost ATF agent Johnny Massengale on that illegal fireworks deal back in the early or late 90s. It's a huge discussion as far as the kind of person power it would take for us to enforce that. And I will not tell you I can do it, and because I'd be lying. What for us, the biggest frustration for us in law enforcement is, our citizens get really frustrated when we tell them what we can't do. So what we try to do is tell them what we can do. And we can do educational things. We can, there's a lot of things, but as far as the resources to do it and who's going to do it, that's a great question. You could have people go through the parks and tell people, hey, you know, park's closed for fireworks, you can't do that. But as soon as they get pushback, then, oh, we need the police to enforce this. And I don't know about you guys, but people have been very edgy this last year.
Mhm.
And we're seeing a lot of confrontations that we haven't seen in the past. And we're also seeing a lot of lawlessness. If you guys drive your cars, you probably notice there's a different demeanor in traffic and how people drive these days. So, you know, these are byproducts of a lot of different things, but I think that to ask volunteers to go out and tell people don't shoot your fireworks off, that could be a recipe for some real problems for them.
Can I go ahead and Quinn, you've been waiting so patiently and I took your space and your time that you were next. So can I go ahead and defer to you, please? And thank you so much, Chief Wolf. And I don't disagree with any of the points that you're making. So, okay.
No worries. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I think I might be in the minority of the council members on this one. I'm not sure. We didn't do really a straw poll. I grew up with fireworks in Butte, Montana. It was kind of the Wild West, and it was the best part of the year for me. So the data that I would like to look at, I'm not super concerned with the noise because it is, you know, one day a year for the most part. The data that I would need to do in order to actually move on this is see how many fires are actually taking place, and if it is actually a major public safety issue. Otherwise, I'm of the mindset of CBD your dogs, take, you know, what you need to in order to get through the day, because it is a balancing of rights and responsibilities. And I absolutely agree with Chief Wolf on the actual practicality of enforcing, as well as I agree with the legislature on this one, that like if we can minimize police interactions that lead to negative outcomes on things that they really shouldn't be focusing on, I think that's the larger issue. I'd also be interested to see how much profit the Suquamish really pull in based on fireworks sales. I would hate to dig into that. So I'm going to need, you know, I'm just, this is a flag for my fellow counselors. I'm going to need a lot more compelling data other than, you know, 50 people complaining out of a town of 41,000.
Chief McGanny, you go right ahead.
Well, you want data? So over the last 4 years, we've had 29 fires in 4 years.
And that's firework related?
Yeah, firework related
Gotcha.
type incidents. And last year we had 10, and now we were, I mean, as dry as we've been in a long time. So
that's helpful.
And I would be curious to know, I mean, you know, the couple days before and the couple days after July 4th as well. Not that you have that at your fingertips, maybe we can talk about that next month and see about that spread and how that, because it does spread. We know people celebrate a couple days before and after. Denise.
Yeah, it starts at Bridge Blast and it's going on today. I'm appalled that we have ordinances like this where we've got, hey, if we had 40 people calling about any other issue, we would take notice. 40 people in, you know, on a holiday calling in. It's, you know, I get it. It's not necessarily a public safety issue. Maybe it should be under the noise ordinance. Who enforces these non-public safety ordinances? The ordinance is there for a reason. It's to protect our community from this. Noise to one person may not be a problem. Noise to another person might be debilitating. I know a vet who owns a local restaurant in town has extreme PTSD triggers. You know, that means a lot to me. And to be told year and year and year, you know, where's the answer, people? I mean, we've got professionals working in this. Is it to get rid of any ordinances that we can't enforce? And then what kind of a situation are we in? So yeah, I'm a little hot about this, mainly because my neighborhood is hot about it, but also because I don't understand. I don't understand why something like this, it doesn't have to be a sworn gun-toting law enforcement officer that writes a ticket. Maybe it does. And in that case, you know, I don't know. I'm not for banning. And Quinn, I hear you. You're from Montana. I'm from California, where we lost a lot of people, a lot of acreage, you know, lots of animals due to fireworks and fire. So I'm a little more sensitive to fire than
You know,
your average bear.
I wonder if, you know, Denise, if there's any way that maybe we could provide any other evidence to you that might help you in learning about why less interaction is being asked for by the legislature. Because it sounds like that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Wolf, but less interaction is where our legislature is going. And so sending a police officer out actually increases the odds of a negative outcome in some cases. And so for minor events, right, more likely for the officer and or the citizen to be injured. And so I think that's what the legislature is trying to mitigate. Am I wrong?
I think
Who's
that's
going
the
to
intention.
destroy?
But the other, you know, Chief Clark and I were just having this discussion, also legally going on to people's property to cite them for this. I don't know as though we can legally do that. There might, there's quite a few, you know, again, our laws have changed quite a bit. It's not like it used to be. And our ability to do certain things, we have to tread very carefully how we go forward. So
I'm doing a time check. It's 5:38. I'd like to answer everybody. It looks like it was Vanessa and then Quinn and then Lieutenant Elton. And then just a reminder, this will be a standing agenda item. We'll revisit this topic again next month. And so we don't have to get everything out into the open right now. We can talk about the rest of this next month. And just a brief, you know, like, hey, where are we at? Any new ideas? How's that CENTCOM data coming? Vanessa.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out that there's a question from a citizen in the chat area.
Well, we don't offer that in this committee. We don't have public comment at this committee.
Okay.
Yeah, by consensus of the committee.
Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to hear that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I sure do appreciate you. And you guys, Vanessa is so amazing. She does our agendas for us. She's been like getting everything together for us. We just are so appreciative of you, Vanessa. Thank you for the work that you're doing to help this revamped, revitalized, what are we, a renewed committee to function more effectively. I sure do appreciate you. Quinn.
Oh, thanks.
Great, thanks for that. And I'm gonna ask a question of Chief McGanny. And if it's putting you on the spot, like, please let me know. But in your opinion, kind of knowing that these fires have taken place, like, do you have a position on whether or not there should be an all-out ban if you'd like to see more enforcement? Because I'm much more interested in the fire issue than other issues that other folks are bringing up.
Well, so I mean, fireworks, do they cause issues? Yes. Do I think it's realistic that we can, even if the city of Bremerton was to ban fireworks inside the city limits, our borders are crazy, like Councilor Frey. Olympus Drive, right? Because I saw there was a complaint on Olympus Drive. Well, Olympus is split right down the middle. So the duplexes that are currently across the street from Station 3 are in the county. There's no enforcement there, right? Which I'm sure are hitting your neighborhood on Halverson. So how do you, I mean, and Chief Wolf talked about it, the idea of enforcement just doesn't make sense. I mean, both of the chief of police and the fire department could call back all our people to try to enforce it on the 4th of July, and it's not going to happen at a cost that would be exuberant to both of our budgets. I understand both sides of the issue. From a firefighting aspect, yeah, I mean, there are some hazards, but it's not, in the 31 years I've been here, hasn't really been crazy, right? I mean, we've seen some crazy 4th of Julys, and we've lost some buildings, not on the 4th of July, but we had a kid burn down a sixplex on Wyckoff a few years ago because he was playing with a sparkler. A few days after the 4th of July. So they do happen. We don't see a ton of injuries. We didn't have any injuries this year. We had one last year. So for us in the city of Bremerton, the 4th of July isn't huge. I understand both sides of how annoying they can be and how frustrating it is on the 23rd of June that you got fireworks going off. Well, those fireworks are not bought by stands that are in Bremerton, because those we don't even start selling till the 28th. So those are coming from the reservations, and there's nothing we
Right.
can do about that. So is it a problem? Yes, I get it, but are we going to be able to enforce it? And remember, I get your frustration, but it's just that expectation of enforcement is we have 14 people on duty and we're running 10,000 calls a year. Where do we, my fire prevention guys can't go out and do it. And I mean, realistically, the BMC allows us to enforce kind of the fire department. But again, I'm not going to send my guys out to get into confrontations with people over fireworks. It's just not worth the safety.
Thanks
So,
a lot for that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I mean, we're not going to have a lot of people write into us to thank us or celebrate having fireworks. We mostly get complaints, right? That's what we mostly get, are people complaining. So I just wonder how many hundreds or thousands of people would thank us for having fireworks in the city. Lieutenant Elton.
Hey, I just wanted to kind of articulate or kind of draw a picture of what it looks like to enforce a fireworks call. So I'm imagining somebody from Denise's neighborhood calling. I heard the firework too, Denise. And right now they would be 5th in line based on the calls that are pending on my computer screen right now. And officers, based on my experience, you show up there, in an hour, and the person who lit the fireworks gone. Even if you're in your patrol car and it rises above you and explodes over your head, you look around and you see 58 people standing around. You don't really know who lit it off. So this is really the struggle with trying to enforce the calls that are maybe not a danger to the public or property. So I think we struck, a reasonable balance in making sure we go to the 911 calls where property or a person was in peril. And I am starting my 23rd year today. It's my work anniversary. And
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, I got flowers for my wife. Hey, this is the realities of law enforcement and enforcing fireworks. By the time you get there, it's over with, and you're halfway across the city, and then you got to go back to the other side for a DV. Now there's 4 calls pending right now. So your fireworks call just fell, to number 5 again. So that's the realities. And that's why it's really not, it's just not really possible to do what the people want us to do that are complaining about the noise.
Thank you. That was a perfect illustration, Lieutenant Elton. I appreciate that. It's 5:45, and I'm wondering, Kylie would you like to be the last word on this issue? Because I think we're gonna just kind of touch back on it next month and for the few months following. Because I think we could do something better, but maybe we just need to have more information.
This is just I don't know that we've had this discussion about whether this would be a workable solution. And I don't think it would work for every solution, but there's got to be some streets where there's people on the street that really don't like fireworks, and there's people on the street that really do, or neighborhoods or blocks or whatever. We do have community mediation resources in Kitsap County that are available. And what I would be thinking about is, like, if people knew that they were really upsetting or really harming, like, their neighbors or in their neighborhood, then maybe they would change their behavior on their own, and they could have that face-to-face conversation, and it would feel personal to them, that they were like, can we strike a compromise? No, hey, every year, usually I let my, I'm not saying me, I'm saying, like, if there was a person on that street that let their teenagers run wild and set off fireworks for 2 weeks, but then they don't know that a person down the street is calling in all the time, right? And that person has PTSD, or that person has a dog or something like that. And if there was a way to connect those people face to face, I'm thinking about, like, the restorative justice type things where victims and perpetrators of crime are sometimes brought together as a part of the healing process for a victim. And I know that maybe that's not a good analogy, but what I'm just saying is that I think people are good people, And that maybe if some of these people could work out, like know what was going on and like who it was affecting, it might change some behaviors. Because I know that was a discussion last night.
And yeah, and I like Denise's signs. I'm going to give you kind of an illustration of a small issue and a systemic change and how long it took to happen, and it still has hiccups. Okay. I have a fragrance allergy, which really stinks. Haha, pun intended. You know, I don't get those warm, fuzzy feelings when I smell a certain cologne or perfume. It smells like an ER visit to me. And so I've been working at the high school for a long time now. And what happens in high schools, they all want to spray Axe, spray cologne. Maybe they're covering up their cigarettes. I don't know, probably vaping in the back. I don't know what they're doing, you know, but they love to smell good. Well, we've had this systemic change, this systemic educational track that we've been trying to, you know, do for years. Of course, COVID put a little damper in that, but signage, we use signage. I explained to my students that were coming in, you know, physically, here's what happens to me, you know, and having that one-on-one conversation. And it's taken years, and there's still a slip up once in a while, but as a small system, there has been change, and it took several years, and we had to do it the long way. Because if you just say we're banning cologne and perfume and we're sending you home, like a dress, remember with dress code violations, by the way, they don't even have those anymore. And anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But it took a long time, and it took, like Kylie saying, that one-on-one, like Denise is saying, like talking about yesterday's signage, you know, very little enforcement, because once you start to enforce those teenagers, they just push back, you know, just like many adults do, right? So I would love to see a systemic educational change so that we can have these community conversations, so that folks know about the PTSD, so that folks understand, like, maybe it's even an avenue to get to know your neighbors a little better and have a better connection with them. Is there any other final thoughts on this issue, or can we close this meeting at 5:50? Okay. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys. I keep saying it. I'll see y'all next month. Okay. I'll see everybody next month. Thank you for your time today and your thoughtful discussion.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.